Frati Radio, this is Chiara Nicoletti from Rome Film Fest. I'm glad to be with Karim Aïnouz, who's here to present Firebrand. Welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So I was wondering, did you choose to tell the story of Katherine Parr as it shows a woman who didn't do what her role as a queen imposed her to do, so she could be like a real interesting character to know today?
Yeah. You know, I think the real reason for me to do it was because I think the English monarchy is fascinating to the whole world, right? We all want to know what's happening, what happened, what's going to happen. So it's a kind of a modern sort of mythology. It's like what the Greeks did in the past, like the English have been doing the last few hundred years. So I thought it was a very popular topic, and I think the question of doing it about Katherine Parr, which was the last wife of this king who had many wives, who killed many wives, for me it was really important because, you know, it's those projects and those stories and those characters that you start to do and you think, why hasn't it been done before? You know, that for me was the first question, and then said, okay, so then I really need to do it. And I think what was surprising and quite shocking to me is the story of Catherine is a really extraordinary story, but I think there were a lot of women like Catherine that we haven't heard their stories, you know? So I think for me it was like the tip of the iceberg within the English context, but you know, there were so many women that probably were in a position of power and that used that position of power to make change without making war, for example, you know? And I think that it was that really made me do the film, and I think I really hope that it sparkles interest in other Katherine Parrs, because I'm sure there were many.
I was thinking just that I checked Wikipedia, for example, and even Wikipedia is commenting that she might have been the one that led, let's say, Elizabeth to become the queen she was. I mean, so I couldn't understand why her story is not that known.
It is not shocking, it's actually revolting, and I think it just proves like who is telling the story. You know, like who has been writing history. I'll tell you a quick thing. When I began to research on Katherine Parr, I saw a lot of documentaries about Henry VIII and about the wives of Henry VIII. And then all of a sudden I realized, I think I saw like 6 or something, and they're all with men telling the story of the wives. And then I saw one which was a woman who was doing it, and it had a completely different sensation, a completely different flavor, a completely different way of telling the story. So, yeah, I just think that these stories were there, we just didn't know them because some people chose to not tell them. And those people, we know who they are, you know, the people who have the power, who write history. So it is absolutely true that if it wasn't for her, there would be no Elizabeth. If there was no Elizabeth, there would be no Shakespeare. There would be a lot of not so good things as well, because I don't think Elizabeth she was a queen, so she had power, and then, you know, whenever you are in that position, you do things which are not so great. But I think that she did amazing things, and I think it's very, very shocking that, you know, as you said, you had to go to Wikipedia to find out, and but you don't need to go to Wikipedia to find out that Anne Boleyn was decapitated, right?
Exactly, that's the...
It's just, yeah, enough.
I have to say that there's a powerful sentence in a film when she says to Henry, "I loved you as a king," and because I thought that this could show us, this could how she, what was her relationship also with her country, with her role, the real idea that she had about the role.
Yeah. No, it's fantastic you're saying this, because I think when she says, "I loved you as a king," it's meaning I respect you as a statesman. And I respect, you know, because despite of what he did, there's lots of things about Henry which are really fascinating. I mean, his love for music, his statesmanship, the way that he did manage to keep the king afloat, the kingdom afloat, strategically. So I think it's very interesting because it's not only about the fact that she loved the king, she understands where she stands in the network of power and in the hierarchy, and I think it's just a proof of her really incredible intelligence,
One last thing, would you quickly walk me into your choices of really making us feel smelling things, touching things? The film is very tactical.
Yeah. Making films, I've always been really fascinated by the senses. I think there's something very sensual about cinema. There's something very visceral about cinema. And I've always been really intrigued of the senses that cinema can capture. And I think one of them is smell and tactile. I think it entices you in a lot of senses. So in one hand, this is something that I've always been really interested in because it's not because of theory, but I just think it makes you much closer. It puts you in a position that you're really close to the character, and I think it helps you either empathize, hate, love the character. But I think it's a way of really drawing audiences to a place where you feel like they're in the same room with you. Because I think cinema does this, it breaks these borders. So I think this for me was the first reason I did it. I've been doing it since the beginning I started making films. I think it's really important that watching a movie is being really close to the characters that are in the story. And then I think the other thing that was important there too is, the man smelled, like there's stories that you could smell him 10 meters away. And so I thought it was part of making a portrait about him. It was him singing, what he was suffering in terms of the ulcer he had in his leg, and things that are very intimate, But I think that what they do is that it allows you to be with the character, not looking at the character. And I think that's when cinema becomes powerful. It's like music, right? You don't look at the music that you listen. You just feel it.
So true. Thank you so much, Karim Aïnouz, for talking about Firebrand here at Rome Film Festival. And this is Chiara Nicoletti for Fred, Festival Insider.
Thank you for the interview.